grateful to all the organisers. So my project looked at those tasks that were undertaken by applicants to our training program across Australia and New Zealand. And certainly the Australian and New Zealand College has a reasonable body of information about our registrars as they go through the training scheme, but we've had very little information on those who are applying and on the selection process for our training program. And so to try and fill this relative gap, I created a survey that was to be sent to all of those who applied for the 2014 training program, and it was also sent to all the first year trainees. And then there was a separate survey for all those people who sat on a selection panel for this program, and both of these surveys were approved by our Research Ethics Committee. The surveys were sent out via a web survey company, so via email, by the college, so there was anonymity. The response rate was just under 50% for the applicant survey and just over 50% for the selector survey. As the questions were different, I'm just going to look through the information separately. I'm not able to present all the information that I collected, but I've just summarised what I feel is more important. There's been some concern in my college that people who enter the training program are much older and they're finishing their training program at a much older stage. So the first question I just asked was their age, and the majority of applicants were certainly under 30 years of age. I was also seeking to gain information at what point in their career that they were applying for ophthalmology training, and the majority of people were applying between 3 and 4 years after graduating from medicine. I was also interested in how much time people had spent on various pursuits in trying to gain a successful training position, and there are approximately 60% of people had spent between 1 and 3 years, but a reasonable number of people, just under 40%, were spending 4 or more years on various projects towards a successful training post. The Australian and New Zealand College lists 7 key roles that it feels are very important for all ophthalmologists to achieve, and so I asked the applicants to grade these from 1 to 7, and the 3 most important roles out of the ones that were listed were to be a manager, a health advocate and a scholar, and I'll compare this with the selector survey shortly. This is a little bit of a busy slide, but I just asked the applicants what they were actually doing to try and gain a successful position, and the vast majority, over 90%, were writing a paper for publication. Quite a large body, 75%, were taking a position as an ophthalmology resident, and approximately 60% were undertaking a master's degree. I asked the applicants what was important to them in deciding which training network, because there are multiple places that they can train across Australia and New Zealand, and certainly the level of supervision was the most important factor, and of course a training location near where they lived was certainly very important to them. And then I of course asked them if they felt the selection process was good or otherwise, and a large percentage felt it was good, very good or excellent, with about 30% saying it was average or poor. So now I'm going to go to some of the questions from the selector survey. So I also asked the people who were on the selection panel to grade these 7 key roles, to give each of these a score from 1 to 7. And the most important for the selectors were a health advocate, manager and collaborator. But I found that there was actually quite a close correlation between the applicants and the selectors for which of these they felt were more important. This is a little bit of a busy slide as well, but I asked the selectors what they felt were important pursuits for potential ophthalmologists, and for each of these tasks they would give an answer of yes, perhaps, or no. And what was quite interesting was that the large majority of selectors felt that experience was important, so they would like a potential applicant to take a position as an ophthalmology resident or as an unaccredited ophthalmology registrar, and then in third place was writing a paper for publication. So again, I know this is a little bit busy and the questions were different, which is why the graphs look a little bit different, but there wasn't as close a correlation here as there was with the 7 key roles, which I found interesting. So I asked the selectors what they felt were important, and of course an applicant with good references was certainly very important, and an applicant that they felt would fit well into their network, and I apologise that didn't quite fit into the slide. They also felt an applicant with at least 3 years postgraduate experience was important. And fortunately the majority of selectors were happy with the current selection process. So to conclude, the median age of the applicants was 28 years. Approximately 60% spent 1 to 3 years working towards selection, but a reasonable body had spent 4 or more years. The most important factor for applicants in selecting a network is the level of supervision, and for selectors it's good references. The most important pursuits in order for applicants were writing a paper, taking a position as a resident and pursuing a master's degree, but for selectors it was experience, being an ophthalmology resident, a registrar, and writing a paper came in at third. So I'm hoping that as this information becomes disseminated, it will act as a guide for future applicants to the training program, and I'm also hoping that it will enable the selection process to be more robust. Thank you.